Hello, hello. Laura Brandenburg here from Bridging the Gap, and I am so excited that our free workshop went live yesterday. I was on my way back from Toronto, and the tech team, our team, and technology, and all kinds of things made that happen. And so I'm super excited to be back in the office officially and helping a lot of people with this training, getting the word out about it, and answering your questions as we go through this. So we have a fantastic couple of weeks coming up here at Bridging the Gap. We get to do this twice a year where we talk all about the opportunities for business analysts, how to get started, how to be successful in your career, do lots of coaching, and we answer a lot of questions. And so I just encourage you to think about, like, what do you want out of this time that we have together? What are your intentions out of this time that we have together? And before we dive in, I kind of just jumped right in there, but I always like to share a story for those who maybe are, while Facebook kind of gets the algorithms going and lets people know we're here. If you're here, leave a comment, say hello, let me know where you're from. That also helps other people see the video in the group as well. But because I just came back from Toronto, I actually was going through customs. And I haven't actually traveled internationally for a long time. And I always get a little nervous going through customs, right? It's kind of like, what am I doing something wrong? Am I going to get caught? Like, is there going to be a process? Like, caught what? I don't know what I'm going to get caught with, but like there's nothing illegal that I'm doing or trying to get in. It's just like there's a position of authority, and it's a little nerve-wracking, right? And so he asked me, where do you live? Or first he asked me, what's your destination? And it was Wilmington, and that was clear. And then he's like, is that where you live? And this is a key skill for a business analyst, right? Is I like to be precise. I don't live in Wilmington. I live in a town outside of Wilmington. So I almost for a second was like, well, no, that's not where I live, and started this whole story about where I live and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that's not what he's looking for. He wants to know, like, am I going home to my destination? And I just took a breath and said, yeah, that's exactly where I'm going, right? And it reminded me of like, I was much, much younger, maybe 20 years ago or something, and I was going to Canada with a friend from school. Actually, she was from a different school, and we were both going in together, and I got that same question. I got the question, where do you live, or where are you from, or where are you coming from, or something like that. And I was in college in one town. I lived in a different state. I was like, is he going to check my license, right? Like, and then my friend was at a different college and lived in a different town. So like my head had 4 answers in it. And I kind of got stuttering and worried and like started saying all these things. And they're like, can you please step out of the car? I was like, what? Like, so like, seriously, can you step out? They searched our whole car. They asked us all kinds of questions. I mean, we weren't doing anything wrong, but it was the same question, different response. So why am I telling you this story? Like, what does this have to do with business analysis? I think this happens a lot. Like, think about how you react when somebody asks you a question. Right? What do you do, especially in a job interview setting, right? And do you start kind of going around and around and around? It doesn't build confidence, right? Do you have 4 answers to that question, or do you have, like, can you take a deep breath, think about why somebody's asking that, and then answer the question? So just think about how, like, pay attention to that maybe over the next couple of weeks as we're in this situation together, and let me know, how does that come up for you? How do you answer questions? What comes up for you? What is going through your mind? Because a lot of times that's the place where we need to pause and we need to think and we need to take a breath and figure out what to go from here. And I'm going to talk about Amelia McHenry. I'm going to talk about her a lot because she just blows my mind, her incredible results. But one of the things she shared in her success story was when she was asked a tough question in an interview. And Amelia's super vivacious, like probably extroverted personality, like really has a lot of energy. She stopped. She's like, I stopped. And I said, let me think about that. And that's hard to do in an interview, right? Like, let me think about that. And then she explained, you need to listen to her success story, hear it in her words, how she answered this challenging question, and it got her the job, right? So this is not just Laura telling a funny, cute story about customs, right? It's really about you and how you present yourself to the world. All right, so there's a few people listening in live. Hello, hello. Feel free to let me know where you're from, what you're doing, and leave a question if you have one as we go through. So I have, when you see me look here, I've got a few questions and a few things that I pulled up to make sure that I stay on track and cover what we need to cover here today. But before I do that, I did want to tell you one other story. And this is a story I've really just started sharing in the last year. A lot of people don't know this part of my story because for a long time I swept it under the rug and didn't want to really share and put it out there. But when I first got out of college, and I was really incredibly fortunate to land full-time professional position in a great company with a great culture, great environment right out of college. And especially fortunate because I had an undergraduate degree in philosophy and English, not like a business degree in marketing or a trade school that, you know, sets you up for a job, like philosophy and English, right? And it was a publishing company, and I had the title assistant editor. I think it was glorious on the outside. But I was absolutely miserable in that job. I was bored out of my mind. I was barely making enough to make ends meet. And when I say that, like I didn't have an extravagant lifestyle. I did have my own apartment, and I had a car I bought from my parents, right? Like that I think I was still paying them off on a little bit, but it wasn't a new car. It wasn't a fancy car. And it wasn't a fancy apartment. It wasn't in a fancy area, right? It was a modest, somewhat modest lifestyle. I was making $22,000 a year, which like isn't bad money, but wasn't great money. And so every month I just like, I'm a saver, and I was just kind of watching things barely scrape by. Like, should I move in with a roommate? Like, should I change something else? Like, can I even go out to dinner, right? Like, these were questions I had. I was definitely not setting myself up for a secure financial future either. And I was bored. So to be in that situation and then be at work every day and feel like I just felt like I wasn't living up to my full potential, right? And even the prospects in the department I was in, it was like 3, maybe 5 years before you would be in an editorial role where you would be kind of a true editor, have your own book was kind of a big milestone, which meant you got to do all the work or all the organization. And, you know, you would have assistant editors working underneath you doing a lot of what I was doing then. But that wasn't even all that exciting to me. I mean, it was exciting that I was going to be the editor of a book and have my name on a book, right? But it wasn't super exciting. It wasn't like the creative part of the process. And so I was just like, but I was stuck. I had this limiting belief that like, well, I have a degree in philosophy and English. Like, I guess this is what I'm stuck with. Well, the transition I made into quality assurance, which I'll talk more about as we go through this series, really got me out of the rut. And what got me out of the rut and got me into that QA role was just volunteering to do anything extra. So I was bored out of my mind, put me on a tech project, put me on a web project. I'll do testing, I'll do this, I'll do that. Like anything that was not the work that I was needing to do. And I actually had a ton of space. I wasn't like overworked either, which is part of the reason I was bored because I just didn't have enough to do. So that QA role, it got me out of the rut, right? And it got me using my mind, making some improvements, doing some work that I found more fulfilling. But it wasn't really even my true potential at that point. The BA role is where I really shined. And I talk about this in the free training about how everybody kind of thought like the perception, what has been reflected back to me over my business analysis career is that I make something like business analysis or like the requirements that make, you know, business stakeholders, that's not like the thing that they want to do, right? Like they don't sit down and go on, oh, I can't wait to work on the requirements today. Like you do because you're a BA and you love it. But then I could make that process fun, right? I could make it fun for them. And I got good engagement, and I took something that was boring, like requirements, that, well, it wasn't boring to me, but it was boring to them, and made it fun and engaging. And that's what we teach at Bridging the Gap. Okay, so this is about the opportunities for business analysis, and that's why I wanted to share that story with you, because for me, there was like a financial component to that. I mentioned, you know, the $22,000 a year. I don't remember, QA was like in the 30s, and then I got another 40% going from QA to BA. And this all happened over the span of about 3 years early in my professional career. So that jump, like that meant, I remember going out and buying a new car. Like I don't know we actually have no goal to get ever a brand new car again. Like that's just not even on my vision list. But like at the time, like I can go out and pick whatever reasonable car I want. And I got a red Volkswagen Beetle and it was awesome. And I bought it new and did it by myself. And that was a huge thing for me to be able to do that, right? As opposed to taking the car that I never really liked from my mom and paying my parents for it. Okay, so that was a big deal. But really, the financial piece was a big deal. I also got to move apartments to a little bit nicer area, a little bit bigger apartment. But the big difference was just how much I loved to go to work every day and how much I was using my mind and actually felt like I was in a career where everything came together for me. Everything felt fun and engaging and like I was solving problems and doing work that mattered. And the people who really resonate with what we do at Bridging the Gap, like, yes, we want you to make a great salary. That's awesome. And yes, it's because you love doing business analysis. So Juan, hello, says hello from Dallas, Texas. Keep doing a great job, Laura. Thank you, thank you. So glad to have you here. All right, so what's the limiting belief though that comes up around this? Because we're gonna talk about this over the next few weeks. Because there's so many, like, okay, Laura, that's great, it happened for you. You're probably in the right place at the right time. I actually believed that for a really long time, that I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I just happened to be like walking down the hallway when somebody was like, we need a business analyst, and look, here's Laura, right? I believed that story until I started training other business analysts, until people started asking me, how do I start a business analyst career? And I was like, oh, just keep walking down the hallways. Like, and then I was like, that's actually Laura. Like, that's not what was going on there. Like, she was looking for me because I had created a track record of doing things like business analysts do, right? And that's why what felt like a chance meeting in the hallway to me was actually something that I had created for myself. It just took me a long time to see it. And then it took me like almost a dozen years now that we've been training VAs at Bridging the Gap to really see exactly how this works, not just for me, but for other people. So like one of those people is Roshini, and Roshini was part of our Blueprint program, and she's in the same way. She was a support analyst and she was interviewing for jobs, and I want to talk about, or she was applying for jobs, and one of the questions we received, just going to go to the question here, was from Ant of like, why do hiring managers not recognize that we have transferable skills? And Roshini was having the same challenge because she was a support analyst and she kept getting calls for support analyst jobs. And she's like, that's not what I want to do. I want to do problem solving. She didn't even know what a BA was. I want to problem solve and do this and do this. And finally she talked to enough recruiters about that, and she got the message back, well, that's a business analyst. That's a business analyst. And so she started looking into the business analysis profession. And then she started doing business analysis in her support analyst work. And she started going to our project managers in her organization and talking about the skills she was learning and what she wanted to do with her career. And all of a sudden, opportunities showed up for her because she created them. She went and said, I'm doing this business analysis course. I'd love to help you with your project. Do you need anyone to do a business analyst? In just 4 weeks into her start of the program, she actually got a formally had half like a part-time BA role. So she was half support analyst and half business analyst. So she made that switch pretty quickly. But the belief that comes up, and this is why I'm going to share a lot of stories, is like, sure, it happened for you. Sure, it happened for Roshini. It's not going to work for me, right? You're special. We're all special. You're all unique. You all have your own path and your own way that the concepts I'm going to teach you are going to work for you. But I will tell you, we have had course participants from dozens of different countries across the world, from dozens, if not hundreds of industry backgrounds, from business backgrounds, from technical backgrounds. I'm going to be sharing their stories because what resonates with one person might not resonate with someone else, but I want you to see yourself in their stories and see this as possible for you. Okay, so let me dive into the questions. Brief drink of water here. Kind of jumped ahead and did one, which is perfect. Margarita asked, why do businesses think it's important for you to have their industry background, right? So this is a big challenge in the profession for sure, is that one of the essential job requirements often is industry experience or experience in a specific industry, right? So why do businesses think that's important? I love the way that Margarita phrased that question, right? I think they think it's important because they don't understand, somebody who does that doesn't understand the industry or the profession of business analysis clearly, and what a good business analyst can do to ask powerful questions and to handle situations and to learn new domains. And so they don't understand that, and they think they need somebody who's an expert. And sometimes they really do. Like, some industries have software systems that are super complex and very hard to learn. And that company might not be willing to invest in your learning. So it actually says something about them. Like, sure, somebody could maybe learn this in a few weeks, but we don't feel like we have the time to invest in someone to learn this tool. So we are going to hold out for the person who knows the tool already or knows the industry. So that, it says something about that employer for sure. But it's not always impossible. So Amelia's story, I said I'm going to come back to her a lot, but it's a perfect story for this situation. And Amelia had maxed out her salary potential in a technical writer role and actually got let go from a position because she was at the very top of the salary bracket for technical writing. And, and so then she wasn't moving on. And so when it was time to do layoffs, they were looking at those factors and like ended up being part of that transition. So, and then she's like, well, what's next for me, right? If technical writer was I was at the best of the best at technical writing, what can I do that's next so I can keep growing and expanding and fulfilling my potential and making the money I want to make? Well, of course, business analysis, right? We're here to talk about business analysis, but she had a couple different jobs, and then she landed a job in the auto insurance industry, which was not an industry that I think she had experience in. And I'm really surprised about this because auto insurance and insurance in general tends to be one of those industries that, like, you've got to have the domain knowledge. Like, it's a big requirement in those roles. But when you think about what I shared at the beginning about how she answered some of the interview questions, she was showing them how she would show up and how she would answer those questions, how she would solve those problems. Like, they had a lot of challenges in their organization that they were facing with their BAs, even that had a lot of business experience and their expertise in their industry. And so she was able to show them how she would handle those situations and the value that she would bring. So I think it really starts with your comfort and your confidence in your core business analysis skills, both how you're going to use those to learn the domain and engage with stakeholders and handle those challenging situations. And also not getting stuck on just like one opportunity or another. Some opportunities like that, you're not going to break that hire manager's perception, but staying open to the opportunity where it can happen. All right, and it happens again and again that BAs get hired into those, and focusing your efforts on the opportunities where there's some gray area in the job requirements about that industry experience. Like if it says preferred, or if it says, yeah, preferred is the perfect world, or if it's not in there whatsoever, those are good opportunities to focus your energy on. Not where it's like required, or if there's a specific industry certification you need, something like that. All right, welcome Ala from the UAE, yay! I'm a software engineer trying to switch to BA. Welcome, welcome. If you have any questions, let me know. All right, so a couple more questions from the group here. We had Juan. Juan said, I hope you are all having successful careers. Of course, we're all having successful careers, right? I just want to stop at this part of the question because this is what can happen over the next few weeks when it comes to leveraging the coaching and the training and the group and what we're creating. Is like, I hope it's all great for you, right? It's not great for me. What I love is that Juan still posted his question, right? But sometimes we can let that, like, it's so great for everyone else. Like, I shouldn't pose my question. I'm probably the only one that has this question. I can tell you if you have this question, someone else has that question. post it, share it, ask it when we're live here so that I can help you, okay? So we can help each other. Juan already got some great answers before I even saw this because it came in about like when I got home last night, and you already got some great answers from people in the community as well. Anyways, any good advice on how to start working as a junior BA in the healthcare domain here in the US? What skills or studies do I need to learn, or any specific certifications worth to get past any job interview? And a little bit about me, I'm a former, not me, but Juan, I'm a former project manager in development and construction. Skills, basic Linux, Tableau, SQL, advanced Excel, also familiar with a lot of methodologies, process, BR, which I'm not sure, Scrum, and Jira. Okay, so first of all, Juan, I have a huge reframe for you, is you are not looking for an entry-level role. You are a project manager who has experience in development and construction, who has exposure to a lot of technologies and software, who has, let me just look at Scrum, Jira, Excel, right? So you have all this experience to draw from. And so it's a big, big deal to underrepresent yourself and underrepresent your skill and think of yourself as an entry-level BA, or I also hear fresher BA used as a term. So you're most likely looking at a mid-career, and I don't know how much project management experience you have, but think of that mid-level BA role, that at least 3 to 5 years of experience. It's what the majority of roles are out there, and so you want to look at that. And I would ask you why you want to focus on the healthcare domain. Perfectly fine to focus on that. It is one of those domains, like we were talking about, that can tend to be, a little bit challenging to get into without the specific healthcare experience. But I would look what healthcare companies in your local area use Tableau, which is like a business intelligence tool. Or where are the data, you have a lot of data experience, so where's a data project management type role in healthcare where they're also doing some business analysis? So a bit of a hybrid role that's going to leverage your past experience, your skills, what you can bring forward into a new role where they would start to see, oh, this person's done a lot of these things before and some of these things are new. So that's what I would suggest for you. It's not going to be about a certification unless there's like a healthcare certification in the kind of jobs that you want to go for. You could look at your business analysis certification, but really it's more about the skills that you learn on the way, the experience you have applying those skills. Somebody commented, and I completely agree, a BA certification would only at the most get you in the door. It's not going to get you through the interview. What gets you through the interview is like what I was talking about at the beginning when I shared my custom story. So if you're just joining us, check back for that story. It's a fun little story about me going through customs and getting caught when I was 20 years old. Not caught, I didn't do anything wrong, but getting searched because of how I showed up, right? And so it is a lot about how you show up, and it starts with how you post in the group. So I will be calling you out on some of that stuff in the group. That's tough love from Laura, but it's in service to you. One of my, I think, skills, and it came really clear to me this weekend in the retreat I did, but is seeing the potential in people and seeing where they really are, even though they don't see that for themselves yet. And sometimes that's what we need, right? We need somebody to see in us what we don't yet see in ourselves so that we can step into it in a safe and growing place. All right, so thank you for your question, Juan, and that is not to pick on you whatsoever. It is to inspire you, motivate you, and help you get where you're going faster. Okay, so Sean asked, I have undergone some business analysis training, but how do I go forward from here? Would anyone hire a new BA with zero experience in the field? So again, not a ton of context here. The new BAs, the entry-level BAs, typically for recent college graduates. So I'm not sure if you're just out of college, there tend to be a handful of BA roles. True entry-level roles in any local area. There's a couple of companies that hire and train and groom new business analysts, and so you would focus on those if you are a recent college grad. If you have more career experience, then you're going to be looking at those business analyst roles, mid-career, mid-level, and you're going to be leveraging your experience forward to figure out where to fit yourself the best, okay? So that's how you would go forward from here. We're going to talk about leveraging the BA skills on the job. That's part 2 of the free training. So I'll leave a link below. Make sure to join the free training and go through that. And then we're going to talk about the key skills that you need to be successful. And you want to be identifying those transferable skills you have and using those in the interview and the recruitment process to really position yourself and position yourself with confidence and strength. All right. So Christina says, and welcome. It looks like we're hitting a few more people or connecting with a few more people. So feel free to tell me who you are. If you have a question, this is the last one I have from the ones that were submitted in advance. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat box and I will answer it for you. All right, so Christina says, I've fallen into business analysis work. I started out as a VA, a virtual assistant, but clients were asking for long-term solutions to their admin issues. Perfect example. So I started advising on how to be more productive and efficient. My question is, will clients hire me as a business analyst if I have no formal qualifications? So yes, they will. And it again is about the experience that you have. So all of that work you did as a VA, helping your clients put long-term solutions into place, all of that is your experience. That's your credential. Right? So then you want to layer on top of that, you might be like, oh, but I don't know if I can do it again, right? I don't know if I can leverage this or I can repeat that same success. That's where training in the core skills comes in to give you that next level of confidence. But yes, people would totally hire you, especially a smaller business that would typically hire a VA. Quite honestly, they're probably not looking for a BA certification so much as like client testimonials, project examples, and just documented experience and credibility. All right, so that's what we had submitted so far. Just gonna kind of check in and see what other questions might come up. Oh, and there we go. Allah says, you mentioned a great point. I have long experience as a software engineer, so I can't introduce myself to entry-level BA. You're on the right track. But at the same time, I am a beginner BA, so how do I solve this? Yes, so you will want to pay attention. In particular, part 2 of the free training, it's coming on Thursday, is about how to start doing business analysis in your roles today. So you start with on-the-job experience, and very likely you've already been doing this. So what happens when I tell you that you start to do this, I don't want to give the whole thing away, but just a little piece of it. So when you start to do it, you realize I have been doing this. Like, Laura, you're telling me to do something I've already done. Well, then you have business analysis experience. Then you have transferable skills that you need to speak to as business analysis experience. So very likely most software engineers, if you've ever been the people person of the software engineering or connected with users, end users, business stakeholders about what the software needs to do, you've been part of those discovery sessions, you've figured out the requirements, you've discovered the requirements. Not always, but very likely you have some. And so you just need to start focusing on the sum, right? And focusing on the BA piece and doing more of that wherever you can do it. And one of the stories that I'll share with you in more detail too is Michael Rodriguez. And Michael had 15 years of experience as a developer and then a lead developer and then a requirements analyst. And what he went through when he went through the blueprint, and he had kind of built a lot of business analysis experience even as well. And he joined because he needed the credits. He wanted to go for certification. What he learned was really to ask next level questions. He called it as a software developer, I might be thinking first and second order questions. Like, what does the software need to do? How is it going to work? The next level is why do you want it to do that? Right? And then the next level is how does this fit into your process? What are we going to update in your process? The next level might be, what problem is existing in that process, right? And why would we want to fix that? What's the big picture implications of being able to address that? So having those conversations in that space of the business-oriented space and getting really comfortable with that. And then, so the software then becomes, the solution to that bigger problem. So practice having those discussions now whenever you can, and identify the places you've had them in the past and start emphasizing that as you move forward in your career. Definitely just start wherever you're at, starting to act more like a BA. And we're going to lead you through that in the training series as well. Nathan, hey Nathan. Nathan says, engineer for 8 years and doing my final year of MBA. Congratulations. Trying to figure out how to transition into a BA role, especially in strategy and operations. What's the best way to get my foot in the door? Great question. So you're an engineer now. I would look at what are the strategy and operations roles in your company. What is the operational process of your engineering team? Wendy, who was one of our very original course participants, but I share her story because it's your situation, was in a software engineering group, and she documented the process for like their release management process. And they want, like, all the engineers are, I love engineers. They make our lives amazing with beautiful, amazing technology, like me being able to connect you with you here. But all the engineers, like, they didn't like the release process, right? So they wanted to automate the whole thing. And so before they automated it, Wendy went in and documented the current state process. And as part of documenting the current state process, they were able to improve that current state process to create a newer improved process, or a to-be process would be the BA word for it. And so then it actually became much more streamlined, and there wasn't a business case for automating it. And that's really strategy and operations, right? She started right where she was at. So that's what I would suggest to you. And then that led to her getting promoted. They created a new business analysis role for her in her company, where she was on the business side working with a product manager. And that's how she got started. But, just start doing the strategy and operations right where you're at, and connecting with the people that you might want to do that for in your company, and set that snowball rolling. Okay. Nico says, I got the business analyst MO change analyst position. Your blog helped me immensely. Thank you for what you do. Oh, congratulations. So that's awesome. And Nico's, I would love to hear more about how that happened for you. So if you are able to post in the group, like what the opportunity was, what you were doing before, and what you think like your top 2 or 3 keys to success were, that will help a lot of people. So I would love to have you share that in the group. That'd be awesome. And thank you for sharing it here. Let's see. So Courtney said, hey Courtney, how do you handle references when you have a 5+ year gap in work for raising kids? Great question. So references, actually, this is a huge opportunity for you, Courtney, is you want to reach out to the people that you worked with 5 years ago and ask them, hey, I'm looking to get back. We worked together. I know it's been a little while, but I'd love to reconnect. And would you be willing to be a reference based on some of the work that I did before? And the beautiful thing about this, and why I got so excited about that, is it's a connection, right? And like, even just asking them for that question could lead to an opportunity. Oh, you're looking for work? Like we're hiring, right? We're hiring a business analyst. You never know. Like, don't go in it with that energy, but just go in with the spirit of reconnecting. So use LinkedIn to find as many of your past colleagues as you can, and start reconnecting with them, and ask the people that you worked with before to be references. So kind of a side story here. We've got a couple of questions coming in, but one of the very first BA job that I had, that I talked a little bit about in the beginning, I sat next to a person, a colleague, and that person has since, they weren't doing business analysis at the time. We had a team of like 6, and 4 of us were business analysts, and 2 people were doing something else. But it was kind of a BA role. It was like related, but not really the way I was doing a business analyst role. Fast forward like 15 plus years, and he's leading a technology team. He's part of our Circle of Success coaching program, looking at how to, he's realized, like, I'm actually a business analyst. Like he was like, Laura, I read your emails and realized I'm actually a business analyst. I did not know that, even though we sat next to each other 15 years ago. And so I share that for you because we reconnected, and we've had great conversations about business analysis and kind of how we've helped each other, right? So those connections, like, think of the people that you connected with the most and that you worked with, and just reach out and be excited about it. Okay, so Sean says, I'm a physicist, but currently work as an administrative support staff in a healthcare facility. Okay, great, because your question, no, yours wasn't. So Sean, sorry, I was matching up the questions. I thought you had asked about how to get to the healthcare domain. That was one. How can I transition into a BA role? I have a BA training recently completed and Lean Six Sigma certification. Thanks in volume for the free information you share. You're welcome. And just a side note on that, like, I love the fact that we have a business model that allows us to share a lot of free information and that allows us to do coaching like this, you know, like in these periods of time throughout the year, that allows us to connect with BAs across the world. So I love the online business model and how it allows us to show up in service in the community. So back to your question, Sean, but I'm a physicist, but currently work as an administrative support staff in a healthcare facility. Yeah, so you've got two huge things. You've got an expertise in being a physicist, and now you've got this administrative support role, right? So you start where you're at, analyzing processes inside your administrative support role. And the way you do that is just look for a process you do, a process that that has a problem, a process that maybe you can connect with a few people, and look to analyze and improve that. And if you have BA training, it should have helped you learn how to do that. You could also use your Six Sigma training, but apply that in your work. Don't wait for somebody to ask you. And we are going to be talking more about that on Thursday. And specifically, I'm going to give you my business process template and share some more examples of how people have actually done this. So we have more to come on that, but that's what you need to start doing. And that's where you build that on the job experience. Administrative role is perfect opportunity to start doing that. Juan asks, best advice or tips on how to start working as a junior BA in the healthcare domain here in the US. Juan, I actually answered your question. You might just need to go back in the recording because you had posted it in the group. So I would just encourage you, stay live here to get, you know, the interaction and the vibe of the live piece, but go back. It was just a little bit further back. Okay. And so be sure to check the recording for that. And thank you for your question. Great one. Okay, same question twice. All right, perfect. All right, so opportunities for business analysis. Just to recap, you know, this is about two things, and one of the mantras in my company and in the work we do is I really believe in people finding financially rewarding work that is also personally and professionally fulfilling to them. So we do the best as we can at that in my company, meaning I personally want to do financially rewarding and fun and fulfilling work. Like, I'm always eliminating from my work things that I don't like and replacing it with things that I do like more. And I also encourage people on my team to create and form in roles that move them in that same way. And that's the container that I want to hold for you over these next few weeks that we're together, is what is financially rewarding for you, right? That's average salary of the business analyst, over $90,000 a year. That might seem like a pipe dream at this moment, but I've shared Amelia's story a few times. I didn't actually share her salary, which she went from technical writer within a year of a few different roles, was in a $90,000 a year business analyst role. And this was not in a big city. She's in Brentwood, Tennessee, and is in a lead business analyst role, and is out of that salary cap that she had hit as a technical writer. And for her, that was a $20,000 salary increase. So, like, That's the kind of things that happen when you show up for yourself and put yourself in a position to do work that's not just, it is the work that you love, and it's also a really, really well rewarded profession. And it takes some time to get there, right? You got to have the skills, you got to have the experience, you need to be able to present yourself with confidence, you got to work through the limiting crap that's holding you back in your head. But it happens, and I've seen it happen again and again using the strategies that we're going to walk you through in the training. So Sean asked, would anyone here hire a fresh BA? Yeah, so there's usually a couple of companies in any local area that hire true entry-level positions, and they are for recent college graduates, and they pay recent college graduate salaries. So if you're not in that position, then you're really looking at leveling up into a mid-level role, which is about bringing forward your transferable experience and building more on the job experience in whatever role you're at now. Considering there's no IT background, is that even possible? I'm glad you brought that up, because we also, there's also a ton of stories of people that don't have a tech background. I don't have a tech background, so I've never written a code of SQL, or that's not even the right way to say it, right? I understand how relational databases work. I have never written a line of SQL. That's how you say it. I can have great conversations with developers about what the software needs to do. Don't expect me to even begin to code that. I have in my business, before I got to the point where I could hire people to do things like put together a WordPress site and copied code from the internet, and kind of like, that's the level at which I could do that. But that was like really, really hard and time consuming, and I broke things more than I fixed them, right? So like, that's the level at which I have understood technology, and that was actually way after I was a business analyst. And Manzoli, who is one of our recent Blueprint participants, he shared his story, just went up on the blog, so you might want to check that one out. He just got promoted into a senior business analyst role. Actually, he moved companies. I'm actually not 100% clear, because he moved companies or moved like divisions within his company, something like that. But totally came in from the subject matter expert and into the technical, into the business analyst role without the technical background, right? And is in a role working on software projects now. So yes, it is definitely possible, and I would say half the people that we work with come from a business background, and half the people we work with come from a technical background. And what's interesting about that is those half of the people, they all think the people on the other side of that background mix have it easier and better than them. Like the people who have a tech background, they think, oh, those people at the business side, they're so lucky because they understand the business, and they have that business domain expertise that's always being looked for in the job postings. And then the people on the business side are like, oh, those technical people, they're so lucky, they understand the technology. Everybody seems like they want somebody who understands the technology, and I don't, and they think that means it's not possible for me. So I hear it's like the same argument on both sides, and honestly, it's just in your head a reason to hold you back. So with that, I want to just close with our closing action item. And in the free training, I talk about how action creates clarity. Or actually, action creates confidence. Action also creates clarity. So if you're sitting here like, I'm not quite sure if business analysis is for me, Laura says we gotta really find joy in the work. I don't know, maybe I should think about it. Like sit back and like, let me think about, am I gonna enjoy this? It's actually the worst thing to do. You know how you figure out if you're gonna enjoy it or not? You do it. You go out and you do something. You ask a question in a new way, you analyze a process, and then you reflect. How was that? Did that bring more joy to my life? Did that help people? Was that fun? Or I didn't like it, right? Like then then you have clarity. And the other thing, you get clarity about whether you like it or not, you also get a lot of confidence. Oh, I've done this before. Like you get to say, I've done this before. And you will never, ever feel ready. You will never, ever feel like the fear's gone away when you're stepping into something new. I do it all the time, and I never, ever feel ready. And you know what makes you feel ready? Putting one foot in front of the other, taking an action, and taking an action that's like a reasonable risk for where you're at in your career, and just moving forward step by step by step. Okay, So let's see. Sean says, thank you so much for your answers. There's huge hope and I'm more excited. You're a miracle. Awesome. I love that. That was the goal of this session. So super excited to answer your questions. If you're listening to the replay and have questions, please leave them below. I will be going live again here in the group on Friday. Thursday, we release the next installment of the free training. If you haven't signed up for it yet, be sure to do that. And then Friday, I will be going live taking your questions on that training. So you want to make time to do it as soon as you can so that you can ask me your questions and we can work through those together. So thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited about the next step for you. This is going to be a great couple of weeks, and I will see you in the group. I will see you on YouTube. We're also posting the replay, and I'm also just paying attention to what's going on in LinkedIn. So connect with me any one of those 3 places that's most comfortable for you. Again, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap. We help business analysts start their careers. And I truly believe that we build our profession one business analyst at a time, and success starts with you. Thank you.